Once again, good morning to all those who just joined us. Russian Donors Forum Annual Conference. We continue our discussion. We'll talk about Russia and the SDGs. What next? Our moderator for the section will be Irina Zhukova, Sustainable Development and CSR Director for Philip Morris. And you can ask your questions. Irina, please go ahead. Yes, hello again. I welcome all the panelists at our session. At the opening session, we talked about the SDGs and partnership. During this session, we would like to talk specifically what our next steps should be implementing the SDGs. This year, Russia presented its national SDG review. This was at the UN high-level forum. The review took over a year to prepare, and a lot of stakeholders were involved in preparing this review. So today we'll talk about this review. We'll talk about what major companies, what NGOs, what government agencies should do to secure further progress on SDGs. First of all, I would like to turn to Ksenia Banikova. She represents the Analysis Center working with the government of Russia. This center started collecting information for preparing this report. So, Ksenia, I would like to ask you about working on this report, because we have some of our colleagues here representing various parts of Russia, so not all of them know in detail how this was done, how you were able to find proper balance between all the stakeholders, and what would you recommend going forward for implementing the SDGs? Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for an opportunity to present the work we did on the national review. Our center coordinated this work, preparing a national review on SDGs. And we organized 17 work groups on various SDG, a group for each SDGs. And we had representatives of government agencies, companies, NGOs, activists in those. And we actually saw that businesses and civil society organizations were particularly active. In some cases, business people were even leaders of some working groups. The way we worked was each group would develop a project on its particular SDG, which will then be publicly discussed with all the stakeholders and experts. And sometimes those groups would work in person, sometimes they worked by correspondence via email or online. So each chapter, each section went through a series of public discussions. So everybody got a chance to make comments or additions. And these public discussions brought in all kinds of proposals and recommendations. Sometimes they were even conflicting on statistics, for example. Some members of groups had differing estimates. Or, for example, we received a proposal to add a few projects or comments on some legislative acts to our review, so we had to find a proper balance. On the one hand, we wanted to take in all the proposals, but at the same time, we wanted to keep our review to a limited volume. The initial version was 400 pages long, and our goal was to present this report to the international community and show that Russia remains committed to the SDGs and to share our success with others, show what we were able to achieve, show it to other countries, show it to the UN. We also looked at international experience, how other countries did their national reviews. We also looked at Russia's experience in working with international organizations on SDGs. As far as statistics are concerned, we got some figures from previous statistical reports. And of course, we wanted our data to be consistent with what were reported earlier. Now, like I said, there were some proposals to include new legislative acts, but eventually we decided against it because we know that other countries have presented their national reports and national reviews already twice, or some countries thrice, and we believe there should be some continuity. If we share some information about certain bills, this means that in our next review, in our next report, we'll have to give an update on what happened to this bill, whether it was adopted or not. So we decided not to do it. Now, as a result of our work in preparing this review, the biggest outcome is that this work started a dialogue between all the stakeholders on SDGs. Up to this point, everybody was doing something on their own. They all had their own projects, but it was not aggregated together. Even ideologically, these projects were somewhat different. However, in preparing this review, they all came together. They all shared their best practices together. Also, we were able to identify some peculiarities of SDG work in Russia and identify some growth opportunities that we should take into account going forward. One more important point. In addition to the national review, the Accountability Office started a review on efficient governance for the purpose of sustainability. And the Accountability Office offered some recommendations on certain improvements. And actually, the recommendations provided by the Government Accountability Office is very similar to what we came up with in our work. For example, they suggested integrating priority SDGs that are particularly relevant to Russia to create a platform for interaction between the government, businesses, and NGOs. Also, they suggested distributing SDGs between several government agencies, making respective government agencies responsible for certain particular SDGs. So we saw that businesses and civil society organizations were quite active participating in this work. Government agencies, less so, but we still saw some progress. So we saw some useful recommendations there. On the first, we should have a national coordinator for this work, a body, an organization coordinating everything, government, businesses, civil society. Also, it is important to distribute responsibilities. Each SDG should be assigned to a particular government agency. Otherwise, quite often we have duplication, redundancy. This is something that the Government Accountability Office emphasized in its report. Also, it is important to incorporate SDGs in Russia's national strategy documents. And actually, our work triggered these efforts. Recently, Russia adopted national goals for the period until 2030. Those have very much in common with SDGs, the well-being of people, comfortable environment for living, decent workplace environment, decent jobs. So you can see that it's a lot in common here. Yet we believe there is still room for improvement. We can make this work more systemic. We saw that a lot of projects, a lot of practical things have been implemented. And actually, we included some of those projects in our review as examples of what businesses and NGOs are doing. Actually, there's a lot of information out there. It's just that you need to put it in a systemic, clear form. Thank you. Thank you for the work you did. It wasn't that easy to put all this into a systemic format. Colleagues, you can ask questions to our speakers. I see some questions here and we'll answer those at the end of our section. Right now, let me turn to Ms. Feoktistova, who is responsible for SDGs at the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs. Yelena, we just talked about the role of civil society and businesses with SDGs. What do you think about that? Do you agree that businesses are playing a leading role in this matter? And what do you think needs to be done for us to continue implementing the SDGs? Good morning, colleagues. Happy to see all of you. With many of you, we often discuss these subjects together. I think starting in January, I've been talking on this issue more than 15 times by now. So our dialogue is very intense, very active. And companies, businesses are always part of this dialogue, no matter who the organizer is, whether it's businesses or experts. Government agencies less so, but businesses are always very active. And I think everybody would agree that businesses drive the SDG agenda in Russia today. I would like to continue what Ksenia started with. Before I focus on business, I'd like to tell you, I can identify 3 key goals, 3 key directions that would be important for us to make progress in, because we want to keep this work systemic. We want to involve all the stakeholders in this work. First, this has to be formalized. What is being done with the global SDGs needs to be formalized. This should be included in Russia's national strategies. Second, it should be taken to a practical level, to the implementation level, and I will talk in more detail about this later. And third, communications. We need a massive communications campaign. We need to raise awareness about SDGs. what are the SDGs? Why is this work so important? What does Russia do in this respect? We need to educate people about this. And businesses play a major role in all those steps. The first one I mentioned, formalizing. Of course, this should be done primarily by the government. I already mentioned the national projects that the government has adopted for the period until 2030. They even use the same year, 2030, as with the SDGs. Yet, as far as I know, SDGs have not been formally included in Russia's official strategic documents and doctrines. Hopefully, soon SDGs will be reflected in national priority documents. I think it would be important to formally accept this relationship, because this would create a framework, a systemic fundamental framework. It would be important for businesses as well, because right now businesses do this voluntarily. Businesses just do what they see fit, but there is no clear picture of where Russia is in this global effort. So even if SDGs are not included in Russia's official strategic documents, as a next step, the economic ministry did some analysis, and that would be important as well. It's important to take it to a practical level, so all the stakeholders can get on board and participate properly. So, on practical matters and the roles that businesses can play, let's get practical. Let's talk about specific matters that Russian companies can play a role in. The purpose of this conference to talk about social investments, social issues, corporate social responsibility. So I'll focus on these matters primarily, even though this applies to all the other matters as well. So actually, what we see here is that at this point, businesses implement certain projects, certain programs, and those can be used to promote the SDG agenda. In fact, you have those major long-term programs with sustainable results. And when implementing those programs, businesses normally use, together with NGOs and local government authorities, both federal, national, and the local government. So, making SDGs our anchor, our top priority, and linking those with the national priority goals would actually help to get more partners on board. This would make this work easier. So I think this would be really helpful. And there's something I'd like to mention today. This is an initiative that the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs came up with. We understand the role that businesses can play and are playing in achieving the SDGs. And, out of all the national projects currently adopted in Russia, at least 6 are directly related to the SDGs. demographics, small businesses, decent jobs, housing, digitization, all these matters. They're directly related to social welfare, and businesses are involved both directly through government contracts and on a bigger scale by contributing to this effort through their projects. So back in spring, we have this NGO national priorities. It was established by the Russian government to promote national projects, to provide communications for national projects, to raise awareness regarding Russia's national projects, to share results achieved in implementing the national goals. So we suggested that this organization, national projects, include this program on businesses' contribution in its activities. Through the specific results that businesses can achieve and are achieving. We made this proposal. We have been collecting a library of social practices. And we have some very well considered, well planned social programs that are being implemented in various parts of Russia. We offered a range of such programs. They went through an initial screening, and we have agreed with national priorities that those programs will receive the brand of the national program partner. The program itself will be designated as the national project partner, so we can promote the results achieved by those programs, the parties involved in implementing them. This way, businesses will recognize that their efforts are being recognized by the government and society. And this actually affects everybody because those national priorities are all encompassing. I think this would be important. This would help businesses to prioritize their projects, focusing more on national priorities. But since businesses would like to present how their activities are related to SDGs as well, businesses will provide the link that we're missing in conjoining the global SDGs and the national development goals. Personally, I think this is another role that businesses can play. At the same time, like I said at the beginning, we do need a general framework to make this whole work more systemic. And this is something that the government should do. Formally incorporating SDGs into the government's program documents. I think I will stop here. I'll just share my vision. We have a few companies and a few programs that will receive this brand very soon. They will be recognized as a national project partner. They will be able to use this brand in their documents on their websites to promote their companies, their programs. They will have to revalidate this brand each year. For example, if a company is no longer involved in this kind of work, they will not be able to use this brand next year. I think this is a very good mechanism that will help us to achieve progress with SDGs. In conclusion, I want to mention once again that businesses have an important role to play in joining national goals and the global SDGs. Thank you. We're running out of time, and I think you mentioned that you had to be elsewhere. We're really grateful to you for these comments. And what you said is very interesting. And we really need this kind of recognition. So this new brand you mentioned is very important. Oh, let me add something. I want to say something about the link about national goals and the SDGs. Yes, of course, this is really important. Right now, I give the floor to the Economic Development Ministry, Deputy Director of Multilateral Economic Cooperation Department. Anton, we mentioned the Economic Development Ministry a few times earlier today. We all know that your minister presented Russia's report at the high-level political forum. So tell us about your ministry's plans regarding the report that has been released recently, and we saw some ideas shared by businesses and by the Government Analysis Center. So what does your ministry have to say? Thank you. Thank you. Of course, we have more and more events these days. Maybe it is a part of the communications campaign that Ksenia talked about, something we need to do to raise awareness regarding SDGs, what they mean to different categories of stakeholders. This should not be limited to a narrow circle of activists. So let me tell you briefly about the role of government here. It was really important to our agency. On the one hand, this was, you might say, the conclusion of the initial stage to us. At the same time, it was the beginning of a greater effort. It's really important. Putting together this list of initiatives and government measures intended to implement the SDGs. At the same time, this work helped us to find parties that are actively involved in this work and are interested in implementing SDGs. So, as instructed by our minister, we did not just collect figures, distributing them among these three sectors: economics, social, environment. And you also mentioned the pandemic. This is another important subject that is closely related to the merits of SDGs. So we also looked into the role that businesses and social and civil society can play. We believe that both are crucially important. Both businesses and civil society can play a very special role. But let me start with ourselves. As far as the government is concerned,
ту разницу в интерпретации и в интеграции, может быть, в таком освоении, скажу так, целей устойчивого развития между бизнесом, обществом и государством.
We see that these three pillars process the matter of SDGs differently. To the government, it's, you might say, kind of rankings document that you have to produce from time to time. So it's one thing to take SDGs as a nice slogan. It sounds nice, yet it's somewhat theoretic. But once you get to specific indicators, specific numbers, specific methodology, it gets really tough. I don't know if our colleagues from the statistics service are listening, but if they were, I'm sure they would be nodding their heads right now, because it's really difficult to get all this information, to get all these numbers, to gather it and process it. All the numbers related to implementing the UN SDGs. And of course, we do this in conjunction with our work on national priority projects. You might say that Russia's national priority development goals reflect the global SDGs, and they are the national application of SDGs to Russia. At the same time, I don't think we should establish direct connection between a specific SDG and a specific national project, a specific national goal. I'm a specialist in international relations myself. So SDGs provide us with a common language. It's easy for us to use SDGs as common ground in describing where government policies should take us when you communicate with your international partners. And actually, I think what the government accountability office did was great, because their report, their review provided all government agencies involved in social and economic work with an understanding regarding SDGs. Now, coming to business, this is something that Irina talked at length about. We always thought that businesses play a key role in this matter. Businesses shape the job situation, the well-being of people in the areas where they operate. Businesses have a great impact on SDGs, but we also believe that SDGs provide businesses with an excellent opportunity. You mentioned the matter of social investment. So if we consider making profit as point A and achieving SDGs as point B, in between those 2 points, there's a lot of space for what we call social investment. This includes a lot of new concepts like ESG standards, other things, and this creates huge new markets because this is the trend that everybody follows today. New kinds of buildings, new kind of agriculture, healthcare. This creates new huge markets. That's why this is important as well. Now I come to civil society, to NGOs. Their role is to provide independent monitoring of what is happening. They can report the actual situation on the ground. NGOs interact directly with local population. They can give us a clear picture of what is happening with respect to the SDGs. And number four, there is fourth category related to the previous three. That's a distinct group. Regional level. This is the next frontier in implementing the SDGs, taking them to a practical level. There is a popular survey showing that actually 2/3 of SDGs can only be implemented once they're taken to a local level. You know, in Russia, we have Moscow, we have Tatarstan, advanced territories that can present themselves to international investors as an appealing investment opportunity. In those places, local authorities know what they're talking about when they bring up SDGs. So we believe it is our goal to talk to local authorities in other parts of Russia. And we believe this should be our next goal. We will continue establishing the relationship between the SDGs and Russia's national goals. We will continue working with statistics. I assure you that the National Statistics Service does a very good job, and it's very hard to collect all that data. We will do our best to incorporate this matter in our international agenda. For example, we are presiding in BRICS this year, so we will do our best to promote sustainability in BRICS. We think it is important to do that. And actually, you have SDG 17, which kind of covers all the previous SDGs. And we also did this voluntary national review. At least we have one now, showing what Russia does and what Russia could do better. It's important as well. It helps us to see where we are, what we have achieved, where we are going. Is there a way for us to improve? So that's all from me for now. I'll be happy to take any questions at a later time. Thank you. This was very interesting. We do have some questions, so please stay online. But first, we should listen to everybody. I give the floor now to Alexander. Alexander Lakida, we know you had plans during the high-level UN forum. So please tell us about that idea. We know that you weren't able to hold all the events that you planned. And also, tell us about contributions by the members of your association. Hello, Irina, colleagues. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this event, well-known, high-profile event. Irina, I will answer the first part of your question first, what we have planned. And actually, I would like to clarify that we were able to hold this event, not as we planned initially. Initially, we thought we had to travel to New York City twice and organize events there. In June, we planned the Leaders Summit. This is something that the Global Compact does. And also, we had the high-level political meeting planned. The Leaders Summit, we were supposed to have a separate section on the best practices of Russian businesses in sustainable development. And actually, this session was very good. I can assure you that it's just a handful of countries that did something like that. So I think it was great that Russia was able to present contribution made by its companies to the 2030 agenda. The other event that was expected to coincide with the presentation of the report was supposed to take place at the UN headquarters. We had to cancel it. It's true. Yet we did something equally important, I believe. After we presented the report, we went to TAS and we had a 3-hour marathon where leaders of various UN agencies would get online. It was very similar. We discussed what next. Anton Svetov was there as well. And I think this worked very well. Our primary goal was to share about the Voluntary National Review, what it is. It's not a one-off thing. It's not like you just present yourself in the best possible light one time and then forget about it. Okay, so you asked what next, what our next step should be. Because it's been a while since July, and we have had quite a few discussions. So I would like to offer 2 points, 2 specific proposals. First, I would like to mention something interesting. In a sense, you might say we've gone the full circle. I mean, business and the government. In the year 2000, when the Global Compact was created, this was an appeal addressed to the businesses, asking them to join global development goals. Back then, we did not have SDGs yet. And many responsible companies already were doing something. This was 20 years ago, and businesses have achieved a lot during this period. We know that businesses are very agile and innovative and quick to do things, so we can really learn from them. Coming back to the government level in Russia, the first step, many of you have mentioned that we need a national action plan. We need to formalize this work. The government should do that. There should be a national action plan. This is what many other countries do. You should either establish correlation between your own national development goals and the SDGs. And we offered our comments together with our colleagues, similarly to what the Government Accountability Office did. And we all agree that this work will be best handled by the Economic Development Ministry. And actually, the government is not that different from businesses. The way they work, they both look at KPIs. So this should be included in KPIs. Government officials should clearly understand that they have to achieve certain KPIs. If they do, I assure you, they will start working much more productively. Okay, so businesses have covered their part of the way, of the road. The government now has to meet it halfway, maybe offer some incentives. So businesses voluntarily accept this model. Can the government offer some incentives to those businesses? What do I get in return for following this model? Maybe it should be some tax benefits. Maybe it should be something else. So, like I said, what we need is formalize SDGs in our national documents, assign a responsible government agencies like the Ministry of Economic Development, introduce SDG related KPIs for government officials, and let the Economic Development Ministry coordinate this work. And I have a question regarding rolling out and cascading. We should take this to the level of provinces as well, because we can do wonderful work at the federal level, at the national level, collect all the data, analyze it, take a systemic approach. But what you need to do next is you should apply it to the regional level, go local. The UN headquarters is in New York, and we have 69 countries that have national global compact networks. The reason we did that is because our work, though done globally at the UN, should then be applied locally through national networks. You know, there is this slogan, think globally, act locally. So I wholeheartedly agree with it with respect to SDGs. We talk a lot about SDGs at a global level, but where are all the factories, plants? They're not in Moscow. They're out there in remote places in various parts of Russia. So what we need to do now is to take it to those regions, those provinces, bring SDGs, bring development goals there. And local authorities, as a rule, support this work. It's just taking those national level KPIs and then taking it down to a local level, applying it practically at a local level. And in conclusion, let me give you another example. I would like to mention an initiative uh, at a local level. Currently, we see cities joining this work. We have 121 cities that are part of the Global Compact now. And those cities, they will not do national reviews, they will do local reviews. So that's another example of proper cascading. For example, we have many company towns in Russia. This is another matter where we can work as partners. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to address this forum. And it is not just a national forum. It is also local. It works with various parts of Russia. Actually, it covers the entire country. So thank you. And I hope that soon all those parts of Russia will be able to use this important tool. The national review is the starting point, which its purpose is to help us to become best. And I really hope that soon we ourselves and our children will see that we are working purposefully. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexander. I would like to echo what FAO Russia director said earlier. We should definitely all join the Global Compact because Global Compact presents the best practices, opportunities for dialogue. So I encourage everybody to join the Global Compact. Thank you very much. Next we go to Россия сегодня.
Нужно развивать эту историю и продвигать это немножечко дальше, не только на федеральном уровне, но и на региональном уровне.
We need to promote SDGs not just at a national, but also at the local level. And I just recently found out that Россия сегодня won an HR reward in the corporate social responsibility category. So could you please tell us about your news agency, first as a business, and second, let me ask you, several people mentioned today that we need a communication strategy, communications campaign to promote SDGs in Russia. What do you think about that? Thank you. Thank you, Irina. Thank you to the RDF. We've been working together with RDF for many years. So on your first question about Россия сегодня, it's a huge corporation. We broadcast in Russian and in many other languages as well. We cover all the different parts of Russia, all the different parts of the world. We have news from almost every Russian, and our news agency consists of RIA Novosti and Sputnik. Sputnik is a foreign broadcast service. And for many years, RIA Novosti and Россия сегодня have been providing global information support, systemic initiatives by government and charitable organizations. So coming to the second part of your question, nearly all of you mentioned the lack of information on the subject. So right now, I invite all of you to work with us, all the participants of this forum. We need to learn more about each other. and we need to work together. We can tell people about development goals together. And these goals, they permeate all the different areas of our lives. Actually, we do have a lot of our own initiatives in this matter. Corporate social responsibility is part of our creed, you might say. This is what we live in. This is what we've been doing for many years. But in addition to that, we have media projects. We tell people about charity projects. We really look forward to establishing partnerships in the matters of social entrepreneurship. I think this matter is often underestimated, underappreciated in Russia. We have media projects that we have been implementing for years. For example, we have the project called Social Navigator. It covers a lot of different subjects, health, healthy lifestyles, recent discoveries made by scientists. What makes you healthy? We have a lot of projects related to education. Actually, I would like to emphasize education in particular here. That's SDG 4, right? Quality education. We also tell people about palliative care. We tell them about people with special needs. We tell them about orphans. Actually, we have a huge project called Mom Find Me. We create videos about orphans so people would adopt them. We help them find foster families. We support children. And it's not just children. We also have a special project for elderly people, for seniors, how to help them. Let me tell you in more detail about our projects related to education, very briefly. Education is the foundation of development, good education. So we at Россия сегодня, we focus a lot on education. We tell people about our universities. We promote them internationally. And the pandemic, of course, affected our life very much. And we are now working remotely. So remote education is once again popular. This creates opportunities for development. And since we care a lot about orphans and their education, we would like to invite you to join discussions on our platforms. I think what we lack today is methodology and tools that could be used in online education. Which resources should we use? Because it's not like we have a clear single system for online education. We would like to have a universal platform which can be used for both theoretical and practical classes.
И, в общем, очевидным стала наша, в общем, такая технологическая, методологическая неподготовленность. И мы хотели бы вот в
So
дискуссии на
we
нашем
actually
формате
tried to teach certain
пригласить
things
экспертов,
ourselves,
специалистов,
and we realized that
специалистов в
we are
области
lacking proper
создания
technology and
курсов, если
methodology.
говорить о том,
So we would
как
invite
дальше
everybody to have a
произойдет
discussion
создание устойчивого
on
развития. Что
how
нам делать
to
дальше, чтобы это
make up
развитие
this slack.
было устойчивым? Вот нам
What do we need to
кажется
do
очень важным
to
обсудить
offer high
создать
quality
не просто курсы,
online remote education to
разработать стандарты для преподавания, чтобы
we need educational standards
возможность
for
для
remote
наших
learning.
наставников, тех детей, которые остались без попечения родителей, чтобы у них была возможность в полном
For
объеме
example,
знания, чтобы дети
orphans
не
should
просто
get a
знали, что они
chance
могут им экзамены сдать,
to
но
get
знания,
proper
которые
education
могут обрести профессию, чтобы у них было что-то,
so they can get a good job later on.
помогающее им почву под ногами обрести. Вот,
This
в
would
общем,
put them on a
с
firm
удовольствием приглашаю всех
foundation. Anyway, I encourage all of you, all those who are interested in this subject, to join us for this round table. So please do contact us if you're interested. My contact info is available. I'll put it in the chat room. So please, if this is something that you're interested in, feel free to contact me. We're open for dialogue. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. You know, I'm a mom myself. My kid is a high school student. And I hear you. I agree that technologically and methodologically, we are not prepared for switching to remote learning. And I agree with you. And it's not just education. The SDG agenda covers all the different areas. Thank you. We now turn to Natalia Kosheleva. Natalia, could you please tell us about evaluating our results? We talked about monitoring, about reviews. What's the proper way for evaluating our progress? What should we see behind the figures we see in those reports? Natalia? Yes, thank you, Irina. Thank you very much for your question. Actual evaluation is the tool that should give you an idea what's behind those figures. Because the proper definition of evaluation as reflected in the SDGs is understanding the interrelationship between action and result. And this can be used for identifying KPIs and identifying factors that help us convert our efforts into specific results. In addition to that, I would like to remind everybody that evaluation is part of the 2030 SDG agenda. This is one of the principles incorporated in the national review process.
Использование и хотя бы упоминание оценки в добровольных национальных обзорах, но, соответственно, там этого не происходит.
Evaluation is always mentioned in voluntary national reviews.
Оценку в обзорах это очень часто коррелирует с тем, что оценка в госуправлении пока не очень используется, если брать мир в целом. И, ну, если
those countries that don't use evaluation for their national reviews, generally this indicates that the government in those countries don't really use evaluation to assess their performance as well.
И я подозреваю, что, может быть, это в том числе связано с интересом к ЦУР Ну и, вероятно, интересом к счетной палате к внедрению этого инструмента. И
In
вот
Russia, we see quite significant interest because the government is interested in the SDGs, and the Government Accountability Office just issued a report on the SDGs. So we're improving our methodology. We're using various conferences, including this conference, to share our experiences. And we have several conferences that are available now offline. That's one of the advantages of online conferences, that you can watch them later. You can watch the recording. So I invite you to take a look at those conferences at your convenience. For example, there's one instrument that we often use. It's the so-called theory of change. What you expect to happen, and then once you implement this change, you look back and you try to understand if the change did happen the way you planned it. Now, these tools can be used at the global level, at the national level, and they can also be used at a local level.
Как сейчас часто называют ЦУР, и это было ответом профессионального сообщества на призыв генерального секретаря ООН, который объявил в конце прошлого года.
The UN Secretary General declared the next 10 years the time for action. And he said it's not enough to take action at the national level. We should act locally and even individually. So in response to that, we're telling people, explaining to them, even if their project is local, even if it's on a smaller scale, they can use this methodology to see where they stand with respect to the SDGs. So we are ready to provide them with this tool. We hope they use this instrument to improve their programs and work more effectively with respect to the SDGs. But as the first step, we just want to help people realize that the SDGs are not something remote. They directly affect people's lives. So please use us. We have resources that can help you make your programs more effective. We are ready to share our methodology. We keep improving our methods. We disseminate them in Russia. And I believe we can be helpful to you. Thank you. Thank you. This was really helpful. And this resonates with us business people. People who work in business, they are accustomed to setting goals and achieving results. Thank you to all the speakers. We do have some questions in our chat box. We've got 5 minutes left, so we'll see if we can answer those questions. Actually, we touched on the subjects mentioned in those questions one way or another during the initial remarks. Question 1, do you have an idea when the next national review may be published? The standard practice is to publish it every 4 years. Okay. The minimum requirement is to issue another national review before 2030, but we have to consider our situation before we make a commitment. I don't know what Ksenia thinks about this. Well, I agree with what Anton said. At this point, we don't know yet. Based on international experience, we see that other countries, they seek to promote their progress, their achievements. Some of the countries have issued 3 national reports by now. So if you want to show your progress, your improvements,
Отлично, спасибо
you do
большое,
that.
коллеги.
We're not there yet
Такой, как
in
планируется
this
внедрять
regard.
независимое гражданское общество в
Okay,
работу по
question
последующим
2.
шагам после ДНО?
How do you plan to get civil society involved in your next steps?
В этом процессе. То есть я поясню просто для тех коллег, которые
Let me explain.
не очень прям 100% в теме. Еще был опубликован гражданский обзор, который сделала некоммерческая
There's
организация.
a
Он также был
civil report prepared by an NGO.
если я права, он также был опубликован, мне кажется, на сайте Организации Объединенных Наций, который дает
It
свое...
was also published on the UN website, and I may be wrong, so Ksenia, if I'm wrong, please correct me. Could you please maybe elucidate the procedure with this civil report? And could you explain whether some NGOs were involved in preparing that? Okay. I can explain about using NGOs in preparing our report. Yes. In fact, some of the people who helped us with our report were also involved in preparing the civil review. But these are different documents. The Voluntary National review is to present our current results, what has been achieved, presented to the international community. On the other hand, the civil report is intended mostly for domestic audience because the idea is to put certain shortcomings into the spotlight. So the purposes of these two reports are somewhat different. Anton, would you like to add? No, I agree with Ksenia. These are two different formats, and we had some people who participated in both. Anyway, this is important work, and it's important to get civil society organizations involved in it. Yes, I agree. The way this work was organized, it was very transparent, and all those who were interested got a chance to participate in this work. I would like to add a few words regarding our next steps. When the civil report was presented, the foreign ministry was involved in that. And all those involved in preparing this civil report were encouraged to send their recommendations. So those were incorporated in our work. Okay, I have a few more questions. I will read all of those.
Который будет представлен всем заинтересованным странам, видимо, в ноябре. Я так понимаю, что мы как бы, у нас нет такого прям документа, который называется план действий, да?
Do we have an action plan, a specific action plan, or no?
Мы уже на эту тему поговорили, поэтому я тогда позволю себе просто сделать комментарий.
Okay, I will just briefly comment.
Большое желание, если будут организованы рабочие группы для проработки.
Some of the colleagues mentioned here that if you have plans to set up working groups for the next stage, they want to be included in this work. They're interested in participating. So they're asking, this is probably something that you should comment on. I don't want to do this for you. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Well, I don't see any further questions. So I would like to thank all of our speakers today. It was really interesting to talk to all of you. Thank you for making the time. And I hope we'll see each other again many, many more times. at various conferences, and the organizers asked me to announce that right now we'll have an interview with Guillermo Miranda, IBM Vice President for Corporate Social Responsibility. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.